Blink-182 has a truly unique discography. While every album has its own identity, they're all unmistakably Blink. While each has its own strengths and weaknesses, some more than others, I think they're all strong, but two specifically stand out, and are usually cited as their best: Enema of the State and Blink-182, aka Untitled. These two records are fascinating to me because they're both, on the face of it, pretty opposite. However, both were extremely influential, being defining records of their respective eras and inspiring countless other bands. These are my personal two favorite Blink albums, totally original opinion, I know, but which one is the best? Let's take a deeper look and see why these albums are so beloved all these years later. The band's fourth, whatever, their 1999 album Enema of the State is probably the most quintessential Blink-182 album. This is the classic pop-punk sound people associate with the band, as well as the sound that would be imitated by other acts of the time. Making a record that leaned heavily into pop may have been jarring for fans at the time, but it was absolutely essential for Blink's success. The mainstream appeal of grunge music was slipping away by the late 90s, and Enema was the shot in the arm that revitalized the rock genre. Blink saw the general public was favoring bubblegum teen pop, and instead of trying to fight it, they worked with it and made an album that meets right in the middle of pop and rock. The result is 35 minutes of pure excellence, as Enema does not have any skips. The only song I don't totally love is the party song. It's not bad, and I still listen to it from time to time. I just think it's the weakest, especially when it's surrounded by so many other great tracks. While this album definitely sounds of its time, I think it's been able to transcend being just a product of the 90s because of its accessibility and its relatability. This is an album that can be enjoyed by fans of Britney Spears as much as it can be enjoyed by fans of hard rock music, making it a good gateway for getting into the genre. It also feels relatable in how they discuss topics such as growing up, not fitting in, and depression. While it's easy to think of Blink as the silly band that ran down the street naked in that one video, there's a lot more depth to their music when you listen to it. Going Away to College is a great example of this, with lyrics discussing the fear of moving away and the heartbreak that comes with leaving a high school sweetheart. As someone who never even had either of those experiences, I could still relate to this song, and it honestly gets me really emotional. I personally take it as a song about growing up and moving on with your life, along with all the anxiety and uncertainty that comes with it. When the song can convey those emotions so well, it just does something to me, man. And don't get me wrong, Enema is still a pretty silly record. I mean, look at the title. But having moments like this are what elevate it from being a fun time to being something that sticks with you long after listening. It's no wonder this album is still played regularly to this day, and the fact that it houses two of their most well-known songs, All the Small Things and What's My Age Again, has definitely helped. Love both those songs to death, but Adam's song was the best single. What's My Age Again comes very close for me, but Adam's song, when I just need a good crying session, no other song hits like that one. After the massive success of Enema, the band released Take Off Your Pants and Jacket, another banger of an album, but in my opinion, wasn't as strong as Enema. It just feels a bit more all over the place, I don't know. It just goes from really happy, really stupid songs to really sad songs to a song about dogs, you know the one. It doesn't really have the focus and tightness that Enema did, but still, great album. Roller Coaster is a bop. Now, their next album, 2003's Blink-182, or Untitled as it's usually referred to, is the album that usually contends with Enema as being Blink's best. Like Enema, Untitled was hugely influential in changing the sound of rock music at the time. The world, especially the US in 2003, was much more jaded, paranoid, and anxious than it had been in 1999, and the general public's musical taste reflected that. The days of bubbly, light, juvenile pop music were on their way out, and artists had to switch it up to remain relevant. For Blink, this meant going in a much darker direction for their next record. Tom DeLonge, during his first of many breaks from Blink, had already experimented with darker sound in 2002 with his new band Boxcar Racer, and this emo and punk-leaning sound would go on to inform Untitled. The album is almost completely unlike their last two. Gone is the immature humor and general upbeat vibes, and In is a much moodier, heavier experience. The album explores themes such as paranoia, anxiety, violence, and uncertainty. These themes come across in the music itself, as the songs sound restless and have a somber tone to them. Some good examples of this are Go, Stockholm Syndrome, and Down, which are all songs you can happily bang your head to until you read the lyrics. Even the more upbeat tracks like Feeling This and Always sound much more grown than their previous records, with screamier vocals and a more alternative vibe. Untitled captures the mood of the US at the time, and can definitely be the type of album you have to be in the mood to listen to. Damn, I'm always in the mood to listen to it though. What does that say about me? This album was a key player in making emo a mainstream sound of the 2000s, with acts like Fall Out Boy, My Chemical Romance, and Taking Back Sunday having huge success in the following years. And just to clarify, I'm not saying this album alone was the reason for the emo explosion, but it was definitely a major part of it. It was a big deal for the biggest rock group at the time to release something so much more experimental and different from what they'd made before, and its impact really can't be understated. Now, while both albums are masterpieces, is one necessarily better than the other? I honestly don't think so. It really is comparing apples to oranges. One is a fun, summery, youthful record that hides some of its deeper, introspective moments beneath a shiny pop exterior, while another is a thematically heavy, gloomy, and often frantic record, with its distraught emotions being right at the forefront. I personally like Untitled better. I think it's aged like a fine wine, and Blink's lyricism has never been as consistently great as it is here. Meanwhile, Enema is the album that I listen to if I need a good serotonin boost. It's like drinking a 5-hour energy. It's fast, perky, and inevitably makes you crash after you have it. To me, Enema and Untitled are like the sun and the moon. One's bright and shiny, and the other is dark and sullen, but they both serve a purpose and are equally as important. Actually, is the moon as important as the sun? I don't know if this analogy makes any sense, it just sounded good in my head, alright? Still, you can't go wrong with either album, as both are Blink at their absolute best.